Greetings audience, I'm Boomstick, and today we're going to be talking about The Breacher by Silly Butts.
Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to make sure you see more videos just like this one. You can also support the channel on Patreon and be one of these amazing patrons with a special thank you to my pro patron, Nerf Nothing. And now, back to the video.
First, let me say that this is a beta build, and there might be some changes between the version that I have here in my hand and the version that's currently released today, for those of you watching on release. The Breacher is a shell-ejecting pump-action springer that utilizes silly shells. On the front, you have probably the largest orange tip if you print it in one color. The muzzle features a thread-on tube cap, which can be swapped out for a +1 or +2 shell capacity extender, although that does come at the cost of increasing the size of the breacher. The breacher has the benefit of a clear tube magazine, which allows you to see what you have loaded. However, theoretically, it means your opponents or zombies can also see what you have loaded. There is also a small window where you can see what shell you have loaded in the breech. You have Picatinny all along the top of the blaster with what's meant to be a cheek rest. However, I think it's more of just a extra color on the back of the blaster, as it's too short to really be useful as a cheek rest in my opinion. There's a small window by the cheek rest which allows you to see if you're primed, and underneath you have your shell loading chamber. I will say this is probably the smoothest loading shell-fed shotgun. Even double loading shells is easy with the breacher. Speaking of smoothness, let's talk about this prime. It is by far the smoothest shell-ejecting shotgun at this level. I really like the pump grip on the breacher, as it is a modified Fetworth Firefly pump grip. The trigger grip is your standard Silly Butts grip, which works well and is comfortable to use. The shell stops are actuated by the printed priming R's, which allow the shells to load into the breech. They can also be actuated on the outside for you to unload your breacher without having to prime it. The breacher can fire any dart that you can fit into a silly shell diameter. This includes, but is not limited to, 4 full lengths, 3 full lengths, 2 full lengths, 1 full length, 4 half lengths, 1x4, 1x3, 1x2 and a single, 2x4, 2x3, 2x2, and 2x1. 4 rifle, 3 rifle, 2 rifle, 1 rifle, cut down mega with 2 full lengths, cut down mega with 4 half lengths, cut down mega with 2 half lengths, 2N1, 1N1, 1 ultra, 4 hyper, 3 hyper, 2 hyper, 1 hyper, and more. Now you can't load full length Mega or Mega XL into the breacher tube, but you are able to load it into the breech manually and fire it that way. Now, unfortunately, there are not any built-in sling points for the breacher at this time. However, there is plenty of rail space for you to be able to add some. Like with Silly's other blasters, the printing is straightforward with written instructions as well as preset files that are ready to print with no extra work. It does take a decent amount of filament, but the final results are well worth the cost. When it comes to assembling the breacher, I unfortunately did not have proper instructions, so I did struggle more than I would have with the current instructions available. It's definitely not a blaster I'd recommend to new blaster builders, and on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being a Spamf and 10 being a Spring Thunder, my personal experience I'd give probably a 7. However, with instructions, it's probably closer to a 6. Now the instructions are super helpful, but there are still quite a few finicky and tricky parts to deal with. But much like the printing, the end result is well worth it. But I knew I had to give people a heads up that this blaster will be more difficult than other options out there. If you're a first-time builder and really want a shell-fed shotgun, I'd probably recommend the Battle Axe, as it is a good bit easier in my opinion. The breacher is an open source blaster just like all of other Silly Butts' designs, which means you can print and source the hardware yourself, and with it being a Silly Butts blaster, it's much easier than other shotgun options out there. Hardware is readily available all across the hobby with Out of Darts, Silver Fox Industries, Bears Wares, and Chaos Bunny Customs in the US, with 1000 Screws offering kits in Canada, Capital 3D in Australia, and Piggy in Singapore. Everyone was waiting for this moment, and I think we're going to see a massive wave of shell-fed shotguns in the hobby, and that makes this shotgun enthusiast very happy. I'm sure I'm missing some other retailers, but this just goes to show how popular this blaster is, and the hobby was ready and waiting with a rating of A for availability. Price for the hardware will run you anywhere from $55 to $72 in the US. And for a shell-fed blaster, you do expect more complexity in hardware, which will make costs go up. So it's not surprising and is still a reasonable price in my opinion. Now, getting printed parts kits will increase the price dramatically. It'll end up costing you upwards of like $250, and that can be a hard price to swallow. I still think it's worth it, but I can see that being the difference between the breacher or the battle axe for some people. And like I said with the battle axe video, the real price will really come down to the shells. You'll want enough to properly field the breacher, and currently there is no shell catcher option. However, much like the Spring Thunder, you might be able to utilize some real steel options on your breacher. Having to print or buy enough shells to field your breacher while not being able to guarantee their return will add up over time. With all this being said, I will be giving the breacher a C for price. My personal belief that it's worth it doesn't change the rating when it comes to comparing it to other options in the hobby. For compatibility, I can say the same thing for the breacher that I did for the battle axe. You can fire any dart type that fits in the dimensions of the silly shell. While full-length Mega and Mega XL can't be loaded in the tube, they can be manually loaded into the breech for those shield or special zombie busting moments. If your local club allows, you can also cut down your Mega and Mega XL so they can be loaded into the tube. Obviously, longer shells like the sniper and bottlenose shells do not work with the breacher. I will say I do hope that there is a sniper setup in the breacher's future, much like we saw with the Spring Thunder and Sobek, as that really allows you to go between shotgun and sniper while still using the same shells, and that is quite lovely. There are not currently any other spring options available for the breacher. However, I would expect that the same springs that work in the battle axe will work in the breacher. You are also limited in stock and pump options for the breacher due to the nature of a tube-fed shotgun. Now, despite the lack of options, I do think the fact that it uses shells with a wide variety of ammo types, that the breacher still deserves a B for compatibility. For the breacher aesthetics, I will say it is an improvement over the standard battle axe. While it's not super fancy, it does have some nice little touches like the nameplate. The breacher is a straightforward tube-fed shotgun that looks like a toy. And while I'm looking forward to future remixes of the breacher, I still think it'll take a B for aesthetics. While the breacher, in my opinion, is better than every other tube-fed shotgun in this hobby in many ways, accessibility is not one of them. There are 6-threaded rods going through this blaster at varying locations. In order to disassemble the breacher at any point, from the spring to the tube, you pretty much are going to have to disassemble the entire thing, and that is not something that I really look forward to on the breacher. The breacher is close to getting a D. However, I think the design of how things go together is just easy enough to work with to give it a C. Overall, I do think you'll see a lot of breachers popping up everywhere, despite some of the lower ratings. A modern tube-fed shotgun is something that the community has been wanting for a very long time. Almost everything about the breacher is a step up when compared to other tube-fed shotguns in the hobby. While not as cheap or as easy to assemble as the battle axe, it looks and reloads so much smoother. And if you're like me and plan on running shell-fed blasters against a horde of zombies, fast reloads is an important factor. And the smoothness of the breacher cannot be overstated. I do currently get the occasional shell flip in the breacher. However, it is a rare occurrence in my breacher's current iteration, and I believe that the issue has been improved upon since my building of this blaster. I think my field report will lend itself to higher scores, especially in fun, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. But what do you think? Is the breacher the perfect hobby-made shotgun, or is there one that can do even more? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment below, and until next time, I've been Boomstick, and I'll see you on the field.